Hello and thank you for joining us on World Now. I am Abosedi Adeniran Aderemi. We begin here in Africa, specifically South Sudan, where the first Vice President, Riek Machar, a long-time rival of the country's President Salva Kiir, has been placed under house arrest. This is according to his party, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement, in opposition. An armed convoy led by top security officials, including the defense minister, allegedly stormed Vice President Machar's residence in the South Sudanese capital, Juba, and disarmed his bodyguards. Both leaders agreed in August 2018 to end a 5-year civil war that killed about 400,000 people. But over the last 7 years, the relationship between them has become increasingly strained amid sporadic violence. The UN has been warning that South Sudan is on the brink of a return to civil war following an escalation of conflict between the president and the vice president that has been expanding for weeks. Now, in Zimbabwe, President Emmerson Mnangagwa has appointed the country's army chief as sports minister. A statement from the presidency says the army chief, Anselm Sanyatwe, has been retired and reassigned to head the sports ministry. Mr. Sanyatwe's removal as army chief comes at a time of increased political lobbying ahead of Zimbabwe's general election set for 2028. Analysts say President Mnangagwa appears to be acting to shield himself from a potential mutiny. He recently reshuffled the heads of police and intelligence service. Now, Niger's military ruler has been sworn in as the country's president for a transitional 5-year term, which the country's new leadership charter says is flexible, depending on the country's security status. The new charter replaces the West African country's constitution. General Chiani became Niger's leader after deposing the country's elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, in 2023. He has signed a decree ordering that all political parties be dissolved. He now has the country's highest military rank of army general. Niger has been plagued by jihadist attacks for many years. It was one of the issues the leaders of the military junta cited when they staged the coup. General Chiani says he will strive to live up to the trust reposed in him by the people. Now, we're still in Africa, where Sudan's army has taken over the country's capital, Khartoum, after fierce armed conflicts with rebel forces. Sudan's military leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, visited the presidential palace in Khartoum just hours after it was recaptured by the army. Surrounded by cheering soldiers at the venue, General Burhan declared the capital free of the paramilitary rapid support forces. This is believed to be the first time he has set foot on the presidential palace since the beginning of the war, almost 2 years ago. We'll be talking more about events in Africa, but in the meantime, let's turn attention to Europe, where Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes the U.S. will stand strong in the face of Russia's demands for the lifting of sanctions as a condition for a ceasefire deal in the Black Sea. The White House says Russian and Ukrainian delegations had agreed to a ceasefire in the Black Sea after 3 days of separate talks with American officials in Saudi Arabia. But hours later, the Russian government released a statement which included a list of conditions for a peace agreement. The demands include the revocation of Western sanctions on financial institutions in the country's agricultural trade and the restoration of their access to the SWIFT international payment system. President Trump says the U.S. government is looking into the request, but the EU says it would not consider removing sanctions without the unconditional withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine's internationally recognized territory. On the other hand, President Zelensky is still appealing for the permission of Ukraine's membership in NATO. He says his battle-hardened nation would make the alliance stronger. Now to other matters. In a move that threatens to widen the global trade war, the U.S. President Donald Trump has announced new import taxes of 25% on cars and car parts coming into America. President Trump says the latest tariffs would come into effect on the 2nd of April, with charges on businesses importing vehicles beginning the next day. The charges on car parts are to start in May or later. He claims the measure would lead to tremendous growth of the U.S. car industry, promising it would spur jobs and investment. But analysts have said the move is likely to lead to a temporary shutdown of significant car production in the U.S., increase in prices, and strained relations between the U.S. and its allies. The U.S. imported roughly 8 million cars last year, accounting for about $240 billion in trade. Mexico is reportedly the top foreign supplier of cars to the U.S., followed by South Korea, Japan, and Canada, and Germany.
This is the beginning of Liberation Day in America. We're going to take back just some of the money that has been taken from us by people sitting behind this desk or another desk that's not quite as nice, but they have their choice of 7, as you know. We're going to charge countries for doing business in our country and taking our jobs, taking our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been taking over the years. They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe. And this is very modest. And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%